Hi there. Have you ever been in a situation where you didn't get the credit that you deserved? Maybe the big promotion at work went to someone else. Or maybe someone took credit for something that you did. If you're a mother, you've surely experienced this as you work tireless hours to keep everyone alive, only to receive very few thanks for the many things that you do. It's hard to go unnoticed. And when we see someone getting the accolades that we feel we deserve, it's very difficult. Well, I want to tell you that there is someone who has experienced that pain. He knows how difficult that is. In fact, he's experienced it to a greater degree than any person who's ever lived. And that person is Jesus. But here's the shocking thing about his situation. It wasn't something that just happened to him by chance. He chose it. He willingly forwent the respect, glory, and honor that he is due. And that is really incredible. And it tells us something about God. It tells us that God is humble. I want to take a few minutes to look at the many evidences of this fact that God is humble. First, we know God is humble because of his choice to become a human. Paul describes Jesus this way. He says, though he was God, he did not think of equality with God as something to cling to. Instead, he gave up his divine privileges and took the humble position of a slave and was born as a human being. Think about this. Jesus Christ, the Lord of all creation, the author of life, the very Son of God, chose to leave behind his throne and his glory and enter human history as a poor Jewish carpenter. Isn't that incredible? He became a human, and not a rich one, and not a powerful one. And by becoming human, he subjected himself to all manner of suffering. You see, he knew what it was to be tired. He knew what it was to be hungry, to work, and to be fully exhausted. He knew what it was to be sad. He knew what it was to be made fun of and rejected. He knew what it was to be weak and to be in want. He knew what it was to experience physical injury. He knew what it was to have to fight fleshly desires in order to remain morally pure. He experienced everything that we do. And you see, Jesus, being God himself, did not cling to his status as God, but instead left complete comfort, security, and ease in order to take on the form of a lowly human being. God is humble. We see a second evidence of God's humility, and that is in Jesus' choice to obey the Father. Paul continues talking about Jesus, and he writes that though Jesus was God, he appeared in human form, and he laid aside not only his divine privilege, but he humbled himself in obedience to God to the point of death, even death on a criminal's cross. Jesus' greatest desire was to be obedient to the Father. And we see him in the Garden of Gethsemane. And in his humanity, he was hesitant to go to the cross. And so he's praying and he's talking to the Father. And he cries out and he asks, Father, if there is any way that the responsibility of this moment, that this cup could pass from me, if there is another way, would you let it be? And then he says this, but not my will be done, but your will be done. Jesus' highest aim was to obey the will of the Father in perfect obedience, no matter what the cost. And though he was God, he deferred to the Father, wanting to do his will completely. And so he did this. He submitted himself to God, And in doing this, he was completely humble. There's a third evidence of God's humility, and that is the gentleness that he displays towards us. You know, when people are in a relationship and they're struggling, you often hear this phrase. One of the partners will inevitably say, you know, I feel like I'm doing all the work in this relationship. Well, if anybody can truly say that, it would be God, because he has done all of the work, hasn't he? I mean, he pursued us. He came after us. He's provided for our needs. He died so that we could have a way into relationship with him. He was patient as we were hesitant. And even now, as we pursue other things, as we essentially spit in his face and go after other things, he humbly waits. He's very patient. I love the beautiful picture that God paints of his own heart through the prophet Hosea. See, God sought to graphically depict the situation between him and his people when he asked Hosea to marry a woman of harlotry. Now, Hosea was obedient in doing this, but you have to recognize that by choosing to do this, Hosea was sentencing himself to a life of brokenheartedness. Because you see, no matter how much he loved this woman, she would never truly love him back. No matter how many ways that he showed his affection, she would always run after other lovers and pursue other things. No matter how faithful he was to her, she would never return that faithfulness. And so it was a hard life and a life of brokenheartedness that he embraced by obeying God in this. But you see, in Hosea's story, God seeks to reveal his own broken heart. He longs to bring us to himself. He longs to restore us fully. He wants to invite us to deeper relationship and to a fully committed union with himself. And that is a wonderful opportunity. But so often, instead of accepting it, we run after other lovers. We seek satisfaction in money, popularity, leisure, romantic relationships, knowledge, success. We go after so many other things, and all the while we leave behind our one true love. So many nights, I think Hosea must have stood in the front door of his home and just looking out, wondering where she might be, looking for her to come home and wishing that she would. So many long nights he must have waited for her. And so too, Jesus stands and he waits for you. He stands at the door as we pursue other things. And here's the amazing thing: in his humility and in his love and in his gentleness, he doesn't go out and find us and drag us back home. No, he waits humbly. So wherever you've wandered to tonight, wherever you are, wherever you find yourself, whatever you've been running after, there's a better thing. And it's Jesus Christ, and he's waiting for you. He's waiting for you to come home. And in doing that, you will find more love and more joy than you ever thought possible, more satisfaction than you ever thought possible. So I hope that you will remember today his humility, the humbleness of our God, of our Creator, our Savior, our husband, for he waits for you today.